The level of food bank need at the moment is at historic levels. It's something to be ashamed of, really, in 2024.
I feel guilty for it, I really do, but we can't manage on the income we get.
And to have charitable support given by people voluntarily to support their fellow citizens, I think is rather uplifting and shows what a good, compassionate country we are. There is good within food banks, and the real reason for the rise in numbers is that people know that they're there, and Labour deliberately wouldn't tell them.
The typical user of a food bank is not someone that's languishing in poverty, it's someone who has a cash flow problem episodically. No, it's true.
Food banks across the country, they are at breaking point. They simply can't keep up with this level of need.
Ordinary people in Britain can't afford to eat. Between 2023 and 2024, over 3 million food parcels were distributed by food banks, the highest number ever recorded. I'm in Newcastle-under-Lyme, where since 2019 there's been a 113% increase in the amount of food parcels distributed. Do you know anybody that uses a food bank?
Yes, we do.
You use
I'm a full-time carer. This is my partner, so I have to look after her. She has a rare illness. Sarah actually volunteers at a food bank as well. So
I help out at State Community Hub.
And again, I think
it's my way of paying back for the food that they give us. So we do a little bit of craft work and help out where we can.
This past 3 years, austerity has really hit people hard. So people that normally wouldn't come into our services, you're seeing them more often. And that is purely because of they're struggling so much.
And what is it you do, if you don't mind me asking?
With children and families, just because I have to kind of like protect anonymity for families, I can't say exactly what I do. But I work with children and families, so I kind of come across loads of people from all walks of life, and like I say, a lot of the time they're just really struggling. Everybody I work with use food bank. So in my role, I'll have families on an average in a week. Almost all the families I get in touch with will be saying, can you do me a food bank voucher? I need to go and get it. Sometimes they don't even have the means to go and collect it. And then I'll have to go and collect it and drop it off to them. We do loads of support for families with fuel as well, so gas and electric, getting the children to school, sometimes uniforms, we help them with uniforms, shoes. You know, some children haven't got a pair of shoes, so we have to go out and buy them a pair of shoes. So it's really, really difficult. People are really struggling.
We donate to food banks on a fairly regular basis because in this day and age, in this 21st century, people shouldn't be going to food banks. They should have an income that allows them to live a decent, honest, good working life. And these people in Newcastle are good, hard-working people, salt of the earth, wonderful people. But there's just no investment in the area. If you want a minimum paid job, come to Stoke-on-Trent or Newcastle, because they're all delivery jobs and vans, man in a van, that's all the jobs are. There's no real good quality jobs.
I feel guilty for it, I really do, but we can't manage on the income we get. It's terrible.
Do you mind me asking how long you've been using food banks for?
since COVID.
Since COVID, so roughly 2 years.
Yeah, 3 years, I'm not every week, and we try not to use it.
No.
But there are some times when it's just difficult. I mean, when you're a full-time carer, I mean, Mike, this is the other thing that gets me. Carer's allowance is £70-odd a week. That's what I get for looking after her 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. If we were to bring a professional carer in, it would cost them thousands. And yet I had to give up work to do this. And that angsts me because I think it's unfair that even though I'm an unpaid carer, if I was to go to work and bring a care system in, which I should be able to do, it would be costing the government thousands and thousands a week, and yet they'll give me 70 quid to do it.
I used a food bank during COVID, during the lockdown, but not at the moment, no. I don't know anyone at the moment.
If I could just throw a number at you, since in 2024, or so from 2023 to 2024, there were at least 3.1 million food parcels that were given out in the UK. What do you think that says about Britain in 2024?
Again, the rich leading the rich, and the poor get shafted. Even to get on the housing market, you've got to be filthy rich. I'm 36 years old and I've got no chance of getting on the housing market. And like I said, during the lockdown, I had to have a food bank delivery because I had no food in my cupboards and I've got kids to feed. But it's disgusting.
There's a figure that was bandied around, 25% of children have food insecurity. How do we live in a country where a quarter of the children don't have enough to eat? And they go into school hungry. There's no, there's meals for all children, I believe, even up to high school, should be universally free. Why are they not free? But they have plenty of money to prop up their mates who want to make PPE, contracts and all sorts of things. They have plenty of money for whatever they want to make money for, but we don't have enough money to make sure children are getting meals while they're in school.
The UK's food poverty level is now among the highest in Europe. Roughly 15% of UK households were experiencing food insecurity in January, according to the Food Foundation. That's 8 million adults and 3 million children going hungry or skipping meals because they cannot regularly afford to buy groceries. We went to Newcastle staff's food bank on the outskirts of the town, which collects and distributes food to the Trussell Trust's 6 food banks in Newcastle-under-Lyme. In years past, the network would spend around £2,000 annually to keep their stocks topped up. Now, they're nearly spending that in a week.
So I'm Anne King, I'm the local organiser for Newcastle Staff's Food Bank. As part of my role, I'm talking to our clients who are coming into Food Bank to find out the reasons that they need emergency food parcels. This is part of our wider work as a Trussell Trust Food Bank, to understand the need at the minute in our area and to look at ways that we can give a voice to our community to bring about change. We're sort of looking to a future where no one needs to rely on a charity to put food on the table. We believe really strongly that there needs to be a change in the way that we support people on the lowest incomes. And while food banks put food on the table, it doesn't address the bigger, deeper issues that some people have. And so part of my role is to sort of explore that along with my colleagues to try and affect change.
What are the biggest changes that you've seen in terms of food poverty since you started working with the Trussell Trust?
So food banks support people in crisis. So we would see families, individuals who had gone through a crisis, something had happened unexpected in their lives to change what was happening around them. And that might have affected their income, it might have affected their ability to work, and that would be the crisis that would mean they would need extra support to put food on the table. What we're seeing now is at much deeper levels of poverty and hardship in our community. So we're seeing people who are in work who still need to come to the food bank. We're seeing people who have unpaid caring work that need to come to the food bank. Basically what we're seeing is that there isn't enough money. Food banks are not a response to a lack of food, they're a response to a lack of money.
Food banks are just not the solution to this problem. We're a sticking plaster at best, but actually the wound's got so big we can't even cover it with our sticking plaster anymore. And that's why we need to see action from the government to actually tackle the underlying drivers. Because food banks across the country, they are at breaking point. They simply can't keep up with this level of need. The reason people find themselves forced to turn to food banks is fundamentally they don't have enough money to buy food and other essentials. The single biggest reason for that is that the social security system, which should be there to protect us when times get tough, it is utterly failing in its most basic duty to make sure that people are protected from going without essentials. In the last couple of years, we've seen these cost of living payments going out 3 times a year, so one-off payments. Now, every time one of those goes out, you see a dip in the need for food banks. But because it's a one-off payment, it doesn't solve the underlying problem of people not having enough money every week. So you see the dip, but it's only a short respite, and then it goes up again. So I think what we've seen is some short-term interventions that kind of show what you can achieve. What we haven't seen is any kind of long-term strategy to make sure that people are protected every week from going without essentials rather than just 3 times a year.
We're a week out from the election now. We're expecting Labour to become the government next week. What is the best scenario that the Trussell Trust or food banks in general can hope for from a Labour government?
We've seen in the manifesto, the Labour manifesto talks about emergency food, says that it wants to see an end to emergency food, calls it a moral scar, and it's fairly policy light, I think, as everyone expected from the manifesto. They said they're going to review universal credit. I think from our point of view, what we need is any review needs to very, very quickly turn into an urgent plan for hardship. So we will want to see measures being brought in before this winter hits us, because we are looking potentially at another year in which need goes up and food banks are on their knees trying to keep up. So I think the important thing is going to be for any incoming government We need them to move quickly, we need them to put some things in place that will start keeping a lid on this need, and then we need a long-term strategy to say, let's get social security fit for purpose, so it protects people in the way it's supposed to. Let's get more secure, better paid jobs. Let's get housing people can afford. And let's get local crisis support properly funded for the long term. All of those things together could be transformative for the country, meaning that people can send their kids to school with shoes that fit. They can afford the bus fare to the hospital, because we know people are not able to afford these things. It's not just food. People are missing cancer appointments because they can't afford the bus fare to get to the hospital. That is unacceptable, so any government coming in has to take really fast action.
Off camera there, you were saying that the last time you voted was about 10 years ago. What motivated you to vote then, and what is stopping you from voting now?
Just interest. They all promise stuff, and then 10 years down the line, nothing happens. So it's for me, it's not worth. At the end of the day, the rich vote the rich in, and that's it. And that's where we stand. The poor people like me, we get shafted at the end.
When I was younger, £20 would get you so much more. Even like just within the last sort of decade, maybe less than that, the value of money isn't the same. So people's wages haven't been rising with inflation. So I totally get that people use food banks. A wage that you could survive on comfortably previously isn't the same wage anymore.
Children's centres are being closed. That was another place people could come and access services, but they're closing them down and closing them down. And now they want to reopen them as if it's a brand new idea. Mm-hmm. It's like you can't package an old present and make it seem like it's a big surprise to everybody. I think people are savvy now and they understand that, but I think it's disgusting that people are having to access food banks when we live in a country where there's so much money, and the children especially, like how can a quarter of children have food insecurity? That doesn't make no sense to me.
It can only improve, but we've got to see after the election. Mm-hmm. If people are better off, less food banks.